You're tuned to Once Upon a Fairy Tale.
Hey everyone, it's DisneyDwayne here, and welcome to another episode of Once Upon a Fairy Tale, the podcast. We are very honored to have Aaron Wallace, author of, I would say, the Thinking Fan's Guide series.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show, Aaron.
Thank you so much for having me, Dwayne.
Wonderful to have you finally also, to meet you in person. This is amazing, and thank you for taking all this time, spending time exploring Walt Disney World here.
Yeah, we've been having an awesome time for over a week now.
Mm-hmm.
All 4 parks in Disney Springs and Festival of the Arts at Epcot and lots of exciting stuff, so it's been great.
So how did the Thinking Fan's Guide series idea come about? Was it Hocus Pocus first, and then Epcot and Magic Kingdom? So the 3 books.
Yeah, so 3 books, 2 are about theme parks, Magic Kingdom and Epcot, both at Walt Disney World, and then Hocus Pocus and Focus, sort of an ancillary addition to the series, which is all about the 1993 Disney Halloween comedy, Hocus Pocus. But Magic Kingdom was the first book. And, I always wanted to write about Disney. At this point, I was in law school at the time. We're going back 6 years ago. I was working on the first book, and I'd already been podcasting and working in sort of the Disney fan community for, something like a decade. And I knew I had a passion for Disney, and that there were a lot of other people who had a passion for Disney. And so I wanted to sort of make that connection. And one thing I noticed was that there was a sense of mystery in the fan community as to why we as adults or burgeoning adults love Disney. And I would hear a lot of people saying, my coworkers don't understand why every vacation I take the chance to go down to Walt Disney World or to Disneyland, and we all sort of understood why we loved it, but maybe weren't able to articulate it. And so I wanted to write a book series that would get to the heart of that and just start with the theme parks, and Magic Kingdom being the most visited theme park in the world, certainly the most visited Disney theme park. The idea was to look at the rides and the shows in the park as storytelling media in the same way that we would look at a play, a novel, a film, and try to get to the heart of why these rides and shows speak to us in the way that a movie that we love might speak to us. Well, I think especially starting with the Magic Kingdom book, again, the idea was to sort of take my background, which at that time was really in analyzing film and literature. So these were my degrees, film studies, English, and so no one was really talking about theme park attractions as narrative works of art. And so my idea was to sort of draw on not so much like the testimony of Disney fans, but sort of what's been written academically about literature. Many times we're talking about fairy tales or novels that were adapted into films that were then adapted into the theme park rides. So to sort of borrow from all these different disciplines to sort of create this new takeoff from those disciplines, which would look at theme parks in the same light, but at the same time to do that in an entertaining way. So that, my pitch to the publisher from day one was that I want to write a textbook. I want to write something that's engaging and fun to read and fast to read, but that still has this substance. And so that's really where the idea of the Thinking Fan's Guide came from. Those 2 words both mean something, like thinking, so it's substantive, and hopefully provocative, and hopefully leaves everyone with a new sense of appreciation for what they've written. But there's also fan in there, which means that this isn't a sort of hard-eyed academic textbook. It really is about having fun with the things that we're reading and writing about, and ultimately celebrating them.
Right. And Epcot followed right after that.
Yeah, so right after Magic Kingdom, we actually did 2 editions of Magic Kingdom, and as you mentioned, I think there's a 3rd one coming out soon.
Mm-hmm.
But so after that sort of hit bookstores and proved, I think, to the publisher and to the retail community that there was an audience for this kind of book, I got a green light to move ahead with the book on Epcot.
Right.
So I started working on that not too long after Magic Kingdom, and it took probably 3 years from beginning to end to bring that project together. Epcot was a tricky park to approach because it is sort of the thinking fan's theme park. I think it's almost on a higher plane. It aspired to bold things. Yeah, I mean, it's the theme park that set out to change the world. I mean, that was literally part of the mission of the park, was to change the world. Magic Kingdom, Disneyland had very noble aspirations, but they weren't like world-changing, peace-achieving level aspirations. So with that came a theme park that contemplates science and culture and geography and race relations and all these big things like world peace. And so just to grapple with that in the context of a theme park it was a little intimidating at first to sit back and think, well, wow, this is a lot to fit into a book. But out of that came, I think, for me, a much more exciting book to write, and I think hopefully for the listener something that's even deeper, but still it's all about having fun.
Right. And just to give us sort of an excerpt to you on what to expect, like that chapter on China was really interesting to me. The fact that they went ahead and did that production, and it wasn't commissioned by China at all, which is kind of in some ways rare, right? Because most of the other things were in some ways commissioned or supported by. So just learning that, and then later on discovering that China stepped in to help them as well, to enhance the show. It's called Reflections of China.
Reflections of China. Yeah, now it is. Originally it was Wonders of China.
Right.
Yeah, to me, so everything in World Showcase is interesting when you look at like the relationship that the national government had with the park. Every opening day World Showcase Country Pavilion, except for Epcot, had the involvement of either that country's government or like a tourism commission associated with the government. But yeah, I think China is, for so many reasons, the most interesting of those. You have to look at the time that Epcot went into development, China's government was not even recognized by the American government, and yet here was an American theme park, sort of a staple of the American culture, inviting the Chinese pavilion into the park, and then they ended up working with the People's Republic of China and their sort of film and media commission to create this film together. So even just in the context of like world history, this little theme park pavilion played a very important role. It's fascinating to think that Epcot and Walt Disney World can play that kind of role, but it has again and again.
Right. Do you think that in any way it led to the development of Disneyland in Hong Kong and then Shanghai?
Yeah, maybe. I think interestingly, in a lot of ways, Disney has been a part of this whole of the rapprochement, of the opening of the door by one culture to the entrance of another culture that we've seen with China and America. Disney's been a part of that time and time again. I write about in the book Iron Man 3, which is a recent movie, and sort of the links that Disney went to make that movie palatable to not only a Chinese audience, but the Chinese government. And so, this question hovers over all of Hollywood and certainly over Disney's movies of what's acceptable to not only a government here but a government somewhere else, and all of this traces back to the China Pavilion. It's very cool.
Absolutely. So just in case you didn't know, in every chapter Aaron recommends a movie of some sort to watch, and that I find really insightful. So like you must have learned a lot also, right? Looking for what recommendations to recommend to people?
Yeah, well, I love movies. I love movies so much. It's like I talk about them all the time. So when I was writing the Magic Kingdom book, that was originally not a part of it. It's a segment called Watch This, and each attraction, as you said, ends with a recommendation that is not... I try to go for sort of surprising thematic connections as opposed to like Peter Pan's Flight. I'm not going to recommend the movie Peter Pan. It's a little on the nose. So I try to look for something that... if you watch the movie, it really brings out the core theme of the attraction. And it is so much fun, as somebody who loves Disney movies, to sit down with every time I write about a ride and say, wait, I'm going to write a list of 30 movies that maybe I think could tie in, and then, go and watch those movies and really sort of think about, well, what's the best fit? And I do put a lot of thought into it. And I have to tell you, maybe more than any other feature in the book, readers have written in to say that they loved that, and that to me it was like a little added treat. I pictured readers being in a bookstore, picking up the book, flipping through, and finding a little extra nugget. And I know as a reader, someone who shops for books, I love finding that little extra added value in the book. So I wanted to put something in there, and also I wanted to tie in Disney movies and theme parks, because too often the fan culture is divided. Like, you're either a Disney Parks fan or you're a Disney movies fan.
True. We're all drawn to Disney differently.
Yeah, but I feel like you're a fan of both and I'm a fan of both, and so I wanted to, bring them together, because there are a lot of connections.
Yeah, and there's more than just that. Like, in terms of nuggets, I think Aaron provides so many, and also the footnotes, which he spends, I would imagine, so much time. There are numbers all over the page, and there are footnotes, that expand on the ideas or the things that he talked about in those pages at the end of the book. So those are great nuggets. And if you want to find out more about Aaron and his books, by the way, I'm going to do your plug right now. He has a website. It's aaronwallace.com.
Aaron Wallace
Online.com.
I wish it were aaronwallace.com. That site has been taken forever. It's just like a holding page. But
right. And you can also, if you want to find out more, he has a podcast called Zip-A-Dee-Doo-Pod.
Yeah, Zip-A-Dee-Doo-Pod.
But also it's going, can we announce this now?
So the name is changing. By the time you guys see this, maybe the name will already have changed. So maybe just check into my website and see.
Right. So what are we going to be hearing in the future, or is that going to be announced at a later date?
Yeah, I'll wait until I get to the first episode under the new name to get into all the details. But exciting format changes, structure changes. But so it's the longest running podcast dedicated to all things Disney, and it's very much a discussion and contemplation show, and it's theme parks, movies, theater, songs, all of it, everything Disney, and that part of it will remain the same, but new structure and release schedule changes and that sort of thing. But I always just tell people, if you want to find me online, just know my name, Aaron Wallace. That'll get you to me on Twitter, my website, anything.
Instagram.
Yeah. Search for that in the iTunes store, and it'll bring up the podcast, regardless of what the name is. So.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So now let's get on to Hocus Pocus. If I were following your series, I would probably have expected another park being written about, and then suddenly this Hocus Pocus kind of like niche sort of IP has come up. Why that? What? All of a sudden?
Yeah, I remember I went to see Hocus Pocus on the big screen, which was a very cool opportunity. I'd seen it in theaters in 1993 as a child, but it came back in Orlando for a special 1 week only screening at Halloween time. And something about, you can see a movie 100 times, and I probably had seen that movie 100 times, but something about seeing something familiar in an unfamiliar setting or in a new way can totally change your experience of it. And this is true for anything in life, not just movies. But seeing this very familiar film footage blown up on a screen right in front of me, it just forced me to reconsider some elements of the film that I'd taken for granted. And I came out of that movie watching experience so excited because I just felt like I'd had a million revelations about the film.
Wow.
And I was telling my friends, I'm going to write a book about this movie, and they were like, yeah, okay. Because it does seem a little random. It's a sort of obscure, weird, relatively at the time unsuccessful Halloween comedy that was forgotten for a long time, and now there's been this resurgence in popularity, but it was probably an odd thing to write a book about.
Did your publishers find it odd? Were they, was it a difficult process to get them to say yes?
Yeah, I don't think anyone I talked to about the book initially was 100% convinced that it was a great idea or that it could sell. But I was still working on the Epcot book too, and there were deadlines to meet with that.
Oh wow!
But I ended up working on both of them at the same time. And whereas the Epcot book took 3 years, Hocus Pocus, the actual writing of the book to deliver to someone took 6 weeks.
So that came first.
Well, so Epcot was happening, and then I sort of stepped aside for a few months to work on Hocus Pocus, and then came back to Epcot.
So I should say that was released first.
Yes, Hocus Pocus was released first. Yes.
Right.
Yes, and it has been such a wild ride. The book came out, and so many of the cast members have reached out to me and really embraced the book and gotten behind it and supporting it and promoting it. And I've heard from so many fans, and it has just been such a blast. I mean, more than anything in life, I love to share what I love with other people, to share passion. Speaking of obscure live-action Disney films, have you seen Cheetah? Probably not. I
No.
guess. Yeah, there's a super rare obscure movie called Cheetah. It's like late 1980s, early 1990s, directed by Roy E. Disney, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's quite an enjoyable little film. But there's this quote in the movie that says, "Sometimes food tastes best in the mouths of friends," and that is one of my all-time favorite quotes because it is so true. I mean, to me, I read that as you can love something, but to share that love with a friend or to see your friend love it, that makes it so much sweeter.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what I'm trying to do ultimately with all three of these books and any other books that I might write. That's what the Thinking Fan's Guide is all about, is to get to the heart of why do we love these things, or why do I love them, and share that with someone else, and hopefully open up new perspective for readers, and then I hear back from them, and so it's really a very exciting thing.
Wonderful, wonderful. So what can we expect next? Or are you working on anything?
Yeah, so I have 5 books underway right now, 5 new books.
Wow.
I honestly do not know which ones will come out when yet. That is
Right.
still sort of part of the conversation that's happening. So,
Can you just tell us if it's IP, some just without any titles?
okay, I'll say this. I will say I always want to expand the book series into new places, and so Hocus Pocus was part of that. As you said, you were expecting another
Yeah.
park book. I like the idea of sort of zigging and zagging, and it keeps it interesting for me, and hopefully for the audience too, and widens the audience.
So the Thinking Fan's Guide to The Void, Secrets of the Empire. No.
There's going to be a video about that on your channel. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. The Void. Yeah, I mean, I know this is a tangent,
Sidetrack, but it's fine.
Dwayne and I and our friend Albert did The Void at Disney Springs.
First time for us.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Mind blowing. And I had heard, and I'm sure you had too on social media, months worth of hype about this.
Yeah.
Everyone was saying it was like the greatest thing ever. And I assumed the effect of that was it would be underwhelming for us.
Right.
It was not. It more than lived up to the hype.
Yeah, it throws you right into the action. It's crazy, and there are parts that you're, I don't know, backing up against the wall because things are coming at you. You know, it's
Oh my
crazy.
gosh.
I mean, is that too much of a spoiler?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if you could spoil this thing. It's just unlike anything, certainly
Yeah,
that I've ever
true.
experienced. So anyway, but no, it will not be about the Void. So I'll just say it's probably some books that you might expect, more
Right.
in the realm of parks, and then maybe some that people don't necessarily expect, but that I hope people will come along on the journey with me, and
Right.
be good stuff, I hope.
And also new additions that are coming on, like some updates to, like, it must be so difficult. I'm just curious. This is probably a little bit off tangent, but I'm curious. Like, wow, to keep track of what's coming up, and also how many do you print? You know, knowing that you're gonna have to change how do you deal with that?
My gosh, getting into the theme park writing game, like I don't even know that I fully appreciated when I started it how much updating would be required.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the publishing industry has evolved such that it is easier these days than it would have been, 20, 30 years ago to update as you go into new print runs. So we do try to do smaller print runs. Of course, you have to have enough to meet the demands of bookstores and everything, but we try to do smaller print runs so that when a print run ends, we have an opportunity to go in and make small updates, and then maybe every, as warranted, come out with a new edition of the book. But that's for the theme parks. Movies don't change so much as frequently.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, he's taken on an amazing task, and it's like such a tall order to take on. Check out his books, please, and definitely highly recommended. Well, if possible at all, I'd definitely love to have Aaron back on the show to talk about other things and updates to his Disney journey and his books. But for now, you can follow him on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and definitely read his books. And you can probably also meet him at D23 Expo, I would say, when it happens.
Yeah, I guess nothing's confirmed yet. They've not
Right.
even confirmed the expo dates for that
Right.
matter, but tentatively at least, yeah, I plan to be there. You plan to be there?
Yep.
Most likely, yeah.
Most likely.
So, and that's where we met,
Mhm.
at the most recent expo. If you guys have never been, you've got to come because it's the most fun that a Disney fan can ever have, and you meet. I literally met over 1,000 people at each expo. Like, it's insane, and they all share a passion with you. So, hopefully, I'll be there. I should be.
Even the director of Hocus Pocus came down, right?
Kenny Ortega,
Ortega.
yeah, came to check out the Hocus Pocus book. What a trip.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again so much, Aaron, for coming on the show. So until the next time, see you guys.
Thanks. Bye bye.